Hey Internet, what's going on? Aaron here, and today it's the importance of having a spiritual journey in your life. It's very easy to get caught up with just going after certain goals or success or certain things that you might think would make for great improvements or dream of a better life. And a lot of the things I talk about on my channel will put you in that direction. But none of it really matters if you don't have the right grounding or reasoning behind what you're doing. And if your intentions are bad, for instance, it will put you down a very unfulfilling, sad path. And if your motivation is not well grounded, as in you don't have a deeply rooted reason for doing what you're doing, it's also going to be at risk of falling apart when new things come in that pose a big challenge for it. And a spiritual journey is a very broad field. It's a broad topic, but I'm going to try to explain as concisely as I can that for me personally, it has been one of the most important things in my life for being happy and not worrying about things like death or being able to have my intentions pure. And this comes with a lot of benefits, as in you become unlikely to get scammed or cheated or be aggressed against by other people. You can kind of see through lies. And of course, you generally have more energy to do with your life because you have abundance in good, wholesome things. And I've got some books here that I've read that have helped me immensely. They cover a broad section of topics, but really it comes down to always being mindful. And in order to do that, you need to constantly be doing certain things, or else you'll fall out of the loop. You'll fall out of your... I'm not sure how to explain it. It's like you become more aware if you meditate and you practice these kinds of awarenesses. But if you start to forget them and you stop the meditation, you kind of fall down to your old ways. If you don't keep the momentum going. And I find for me the best way to keep my awareness up and my spiritual journey moving forward is to be trying new things and to be consuming a lot of knowledge and information about other teachers. And you start to see patterns that give you a more holistic view of generally how things work beyond the physical body, as well as what your mind is doing and how your energy is affecting the things around you, and how the things around you in turn will affect your energy and what you can do about all that. And it gives you a whole nother set of tools to work with people to help them be better off, or to help yourself overcome your own challenges, or just generally to understand the world and the things happening around you. And without a spiritual journey and a grounding in your own sense of morality and purpose and an understanding of the bigger picture and just the general ways of how life works, you tend to kind of just be like a lost cause. You become subject to all of you're like a sheep to your own mind if you don't have any awareness of those things. And that's what makes it so very important to understand what's happening around you, especially as well to understand yourself. Because without that, you lose a lot of control. You kind of it's almost like getting blown with the wind because you don't have any grounding. Let me give some examples here. So Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, is a book that talks about Eckhart Tolle, really, if you listen to him talk just in a couple of seconds, it's pretty much the whole vibe of the book. But essentially, it's this idea of creating space to allow awareness and consciousness to manifest and fill up the space, as opposed to always racing towards the next thought and filling up the next thing. The spontaneous fulfillment of desire, another look on the way things are connected together on an energetic level. Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind was a book that taught me another kind of a very formal way of meditating and why the meditation happens and how to meditate with very good practice. I think if you meditate wrong for forever, then it won't work the same way as if you meditate correctly, and you won't learn the correct way by continuing to meditate wrongly. The Anatomy of Loneliness was, I'm a big fan of Teal Swan. She's very intuitive, and this is a book which explains things that get very deep within your psyche and how they tend to control a lot of, maybe manifest as some weaker sides of you when you're older, but also kind of control your personality and who you are. And so the loneliness is this idea that when you're young, maybe, for example, there's certain things that you learn to repress about yourself, and then the opposite of that is who you become, but that repressed part of yourself ends up lingering behind and staying there and being, lonely. Cupid's Poisoned Arrow. It's kind of a controversial book. I mean, I think that whenever you're consuming knowledge, especially in this domain, you want to take it with a Buddhist mindset. Everything is a hypothesis unless you have your own evidence to suggest otherwise. And in this book, Sanaya Roman talks about how basically sex is happening in relationships, and how if you are not conscious of the energy and you just kind of blow it away, you sort of run into this routine of weakening you and your partner to the point where you actually end up hating each other. And what was once very cute, suddenly it turns into something that is not so good. And a big part of how to overcome that is to engage in more things like bonding and things that will produce oxytocin with your partner, as opposed to just having orgasm, having a sex with the objective of having an orgasm. Wheels of Life, very cool book. I use this book more as like a guide, but it was very useful to read large sections of it as well. It talks about what's like the chakra system. And the chakra system is kind of like a way of seeing the nervous system on an energetic level. And when you look at it through that lens, a lot of things tend to just make more complete, holistic sense, because the body is so complicated. And when you have systems to find patterns that can simplify it down, you can identify within yourself many things that would otherwise just kind of be impossible. And in a lot of ways, the knowledge from a book like this, from this idea of the chakras, can actually go much farther than what the medical system can do for you. It can kind of explain the root cause of where a lot of your illnesses come from, as well as give you, I guess, the tools you need to raise your energy level, or I'm not even sure how to really talk about it. It's just very useful to know how the organs and the parts of your body are connected with each other and with your energy. Demystifying the Out-of-Body Experience. This was another interesting one by Louis Monero. It's more of a textbook. I didn't read the whole book, but there's this whole other world of like going out of body and experiencing probably something similar to what life after death would be like, or before you were born. And I think it's becoming more accepted in today's culture now, and in our day and age, people are more, I'll use the word tolerant of it, because I think most people think that going outside of your body on an energy level is hocus pocus, it can't be real. But more and more people will tell you that it is real, and myself included, because I have done that as well, using the techniques in this book. And it's not something to be seen as like this, oh, I'm so cool, I'm going to go out of my body. Like, if that's your goal, it's probably going to be a lot of work for minimal payoff. Whereas the whole point of going out of your body is to grow your understanding of energy, to progress your spiritual journey, and to elevate your consciousness to higher levels. And I would argue that going out of body is kind of just like a side effect of doing that. It's almost not even really the point at first, because if you can't do it, it's probably because you need to strengthen things that are stopping you from being able to do that. And I've read these books, and they've impacted me in kind of the way I've just mentioned, but I've also read a lot of other books on my Kindle and through audiobook format. And I have to say that every single time I consume some of this knowledge or go through the process of progressing my spiritual journey further, I start to experience the whole world in a much deeper, more profound way. And I really can't imagine what it would be like for somebody to completely neglect this entire side of themselves and of the world and their understanding of what's happening around them. And I think that, maybe it's wrong, and please leave a comment with your ideas about this. But it is my personal belief that if you don't develop any sense of spirituality or greater purpose, or the subject matter in these books that I'm talking about here, if you don't focus on those things, you tend to just kind of be like actually empty on the very inside, and you can't really have a deep grounded purpose in life, or your sense of morality doesn't. You won't go out and kill somebody because of the laws that are stopping you from doing that, or because you think that being a good person will be useful as a means to some end, rather than inherently having this more holistic idea of why that's important. Or just like the other things I mentioned, right? This deeper understanding of everything happening around you. We have so many distractions today that are trying to steal our attention and manipulate us into forming habits that are not productive. Probably looking at our phones all the time, that kind of thing. And the only way you can protect yourself or even fight back against all that is through a spiritual journey, which will just kind of wipe the whole slate clean through meditation or understanding a deeper sense of the energy around you, and being able to take a step back and observe what your body and your mind are doing, and identifying there, oh, hey, you know what, I'm just, I'm trapped in my own mind right now. And to come to that realization, you need to have a spiritual journey to be able to grow out of it. You might have a few glimpses of enlightenment without that, but just by chance. But I think that for some, the end goal of going through all of this stuff is to always be in that state of mind of being aware of all these things happening around you, and having your energies lined up in a very productive, meaningful way, so that what you're doing in the moment and on the level of weeks, months, years, and 10 years are all in line together. And in order to really have that, you need to go through the process. And for that reason, that's why I decided to make this video, to explain to everybody who's interested in the main topics of my channel that you absolutely must take into consideration, at least to some degree, the whole spiritual aspect of your body, of the world. What are the spiritual teachings? Find something that resonates well with you, that piques your curiosity and interest, and explore it. Because otherwise, I can't imagine how dull life must be without it. I remember, to give a fun story, at one time in university, I had an analytical chemistry midterm exam, and a lot of people had been studying a lot for this, and I had done the coursework, so I was fairly confident that I would do okay. But I had actually, it was the first time I had experienced not going out of body, but something kind of similar. I had reached the vibrational state, which is something you do from this book. They teach you this exercise called velo, which allows you to raise the energy vibrations in your body. And I had reached the vibrational state, and when I had done that, it just shattered my mind. It was like, wow, I can do that. My body has the ability inside it to do this. Like it completely mesmerized me. And immediately after, I went to go write that analytical midterm, and it was just so ridiculous, the contrast. Everybody was worried about whether they studied enough, and they were panicking about what questions would be on the midterm. And I had just had this profound spiritual experience, and all I wanted to do was share it with people, and it was totally, that wouldn't have made sense to share it with anyone. And so I had come to that realization. I was just, completely happy with this thing I discovered. I didn't even care about the analytical midterm. And just in case you're wondering, I performed well on the midterm, and this didn't affect me negatively in terms of my performance. But what it did open my eyes to was the contrast of this spiritual journey and what it can open your mind to, versus getting caught up with all the little things that tend to occupy all of your mind, leaving no room for what's really important. At the end of the day, if it's always just hitting off check boxes, cashing in checks, making goals happen, then what's the point, right? Why even do all of it if you're at some point going to pass away and take nothing with you? And the answer to that is through having a spiritual foundation, maybe a framework or just some sort of journey that you go through, which will make all of those other tasks almost feel insignificant in proportion to the greater picture of life. And so I very highly encourage you not to check out these books in particular, unless for some reason, if my description of them caught your attention, by all means. But I encourage you to explore the right spiritual journey for you. I think it is necessary. It's completely essential to having a complete and fulfilling life. That's everything I have to say about that. Until next time.